Steve says when Yossi comes Wednesdays, he saves all his questions. Okay, Yossi Pearl will save Wednesdays. Just save all the questions from Wednesday. Then you're not going to see him on Wednesdays. Okay. Yes. Okay. Ephraim, got to get started. Okay. We left off yesterday. If a person writes a document, a shtar, and it says in the shtar, and it's signed with witnesses, you and all my assets belong to you. That means, so what is it? And witnesses sign it. Two things are being stated in the document. Firstly, you're emancipated. It's a shtar shechur. In addition, all of the assets are yours. And the Eved says, when he brings the get, he says, whether it's himself or a third party. But he's made echod, so we treat a shtar shechur like a get. So regarding the shtar shechur, it's considered substantiated, certified. He's definitely freed. Regarding the assets, because this is kim shtoros, there's no reason why we should rely on a single witness regarding kim shtoros. Therefore, he does not receive the assets unless it's certified by two witnesses. That's the brisa. So there was a question, Abaye and Rava, what about if he says, Kol nechasai k'nuyin loch? All my assets are yours, that means including yourself. And he says, the Eved. Do we say just as he's believed on himself because he's part of Kol Nechosai, it's considered a certification on the total document and he's able to collect the Nechosim? Or do we say that since he's part of Kol Nechosai, and just as I don't accept his validation regarding the Nechosim, I don't accept it regarding himself? So Abaye said, as he's not believed regarding the Nechosim, he's not believed regarding himself, and therefore we treat him as if he's still a slave. He's not emancipated. Rava says no. Rava says palgin dibura. That although he had said kol nechosai, and he's included within that, we say regarding himself he's emancipated, and regarding the assets they remain in the original domain of the master. Okay, that's the machlokas Abaye and Rava. Rava says, as Abaye says, just as it's not effective on one end, it's not effective on the other end. Rava says we split it. Regarding himself, it is considered substantiated, validated. Regarding the chosim, not. Okay. Elo merova echod ze atzmo kono. Chosim lo kono, whether he says atzmo hu nechosai, whether he differentiates, he delineates himself and the nechosim, the master, or he says kol nechosai. Either case, the slave acquires himself, he's emancipated, and the assets are not acquired by the slave or by the free man. Omali Ravada bar Masna l'Rava. That's where 4 lines from the bottom. So Ravada bar Masna says to Rava, Kiman, your position that we say Palgin Dibura, that we're splitting it, Kiman, who do you attribute it to? Reb Shimon. Seemingly, it's Reb Shimon. The Omar Palgin Dibura. Reb Shimon's of the opinion, as we'll see in a moment, Palgin Dibura, which is not simple. This is Rabbi bar Masna's understanding of what the Mishnah is going to say in a moment. That Reb Shimon is of the opinion Palgin Dibura, even though he's made an all-inclusive statement, we're able to extract from that statement and apply it to one particular situation, although it's not being applied to the full situation. Itnan HaKosiv Kol Nechosov Lavdo. Person writes, all my assets are yours, Yotzim and Chorim. Person says, Kol nechosei shaloch. All my assets are yours, and he's included with all my assets. He's freed. He's emancipated, and all the assets are his. Right? Shir karka koshu. What about if he left out? He says, all my assets are yours, except for a small piece of property. It could be shir karka koshu. Minuscule. An inconsequential piece of property. Lo yotzim echorim. We say he's not emancipated. but he said everything is yours except for that small piece of property. So Rashi explains that the position of Tanakama, which is what? The position of the Tanakama is that although he only specified the property, but once, put it this way, so he explains it this way. If he would have said, Atzmach unechosai shaloch, you and my assets are yours, and of the assets I'm leaving out something. So because he identified him separate from the assets, he clearly meant that he's freed. He's emancipated. But since he included the slave in kol nechosai knuim ba chutz bikarka mashu, except for that. There we said we're concerned that maybe when he said that, it was purely to flatter him. When he said karka hoshu, because if he really meant, without question, that he wanted him to be freed, he would have said, atzmachu nechosai, you and my assets. And since he included the assets, it's possible this is purely to flatter him. But in truth, he doesn't want to free him. Therefore, the Tanakama says, it's what lo yotzer ben chorin. He's not freed. Reb Shimon Omen, no, la'olam hu ben chorin. That since he identified what he's not transferring to the Eved, he's a ben chorin. Achiyoma kol nechosai nusun leploni avdi chutz me'echod mivribo sheben. He says, if he would say everything is yours except for 1/10,000th of its value. So now it's not so simple. See, if he says property, karka, the Eved's not karka. He's not fixed property. If he says a specific field, so we know it's the specific field. But if he says 1/10,000th of my what I own, of the assets, even though his value is more than 1/10,000th, but once he's saying something and it's unclear what he's referring to, it's possible he's referring to him. That's even Reb Shimon concurs in that case that he's not freed. Okay? No. No. So Rashi explains, it's the last wide line on top of the page. Avagav deshovi tveg, although the slave is worth a lot more than 1/10,000th of what he's transferring, nevertheless, we're concerned that he's not sincere in what he's giving the slave. Okay, so where do we see from Shimon that he's of the opinion Palgin Dibura over here? So he says, and it's not simple, Rashi, because Tosas argues. Reb Shimon la'olam. Reb Shimon says la'olam. He is a ben chorin unless he says 1/10,000th, which is not clear what he's referring to. But if he specifies anything, the field or property, then he is freed. Reb Shimon la'olam hu ben chorin ashmino lo shno hecho dekon shar nechosim imo gon shepirish hashir sheshir chutz mikarka ploni. Whether he says it's all yours except a specific piece of property, dashakona atzbo ushar nechosim, chutz min shir, v'lo shna hecho, v'lo kon shar nechosim shelo hiskir shem hakarka sheshir, the cause of chutz min beis kur karka. If he specifies the particular piece of property, there's no question. According to Reb Shimon, he's emancipated because he said that piece of property. What about he says, except for an acre of property? And you're not sure which acre he's referring to. So you'd say, since there's a certain degree of ambiguity, maybe he's not sincere. No, he says, la'olam. Even if he doesn't specify the particular piece of property, and he said the measure of property, he's also. Shum karka. Here, now there's the point. If he says, everything is yours except 1 acre, now which acre are we referring to? It's unclear. So he gets no property. He gets no property. The whole chad v'chad equal to meimar hainu haushir. Of course, you could say every piece of property, that's the acre, wherever it may be. Avil hochu hu ben chorin. But nevertheless, we say he's emancipated. Although there's a degree of ambiguity here. See, when he says base core karka, there's no ambiguity. He says, I'm giving you whatever it may be. But even if he says an acre, and he's not able to collect from any of the land, that means when he's transferring assets, evidently he's not sincere, because he can't collect. So maybe as he's not sincere on the property, maybe he's not sincere on the slave. Nevertheless, we say he's free, he's emancipated. Do lav karko, lo shir alma palgin dibura, do kol l'chosei komala. He says, all my assets are yours except an acre. So within what he had said, he's being ambiguous. He's not sincere, because factually the slave can't collect anything. So maybe as he's not sincere regarding himself, regarding the property, he's not sincere. We say no. But he said kol nechosai, and he was included in that. So there's a lack of sincerity in the kol nechosai. Nevertheless, we're able to extract him from the kol nechosai, because he's a slave, he's not property. So we see from here that Rav Shimon is of the opinion of palgin dibura, that although he was included in the statement, we're able to extract from the statement something which is different than the rest of the assets. Good.
Does the same document says that the slave is freed?
No, it's all yours.
It's all yours.
All my properties are yours, except for an acre.
It's very controversial.
That's the way Rashi explains it. Tosas has a problem over here. Interesting problem. The way I explained the Tosas question is not a question. Okay? We'll see in a moment. Because Tosas is going to ask, we'll see it inside. When a person says, all my properties are yours except for an acre. Except for an acre. What does that mean? Why can't he collect any of the properties? Because you're not sure which acre he was referring to exclude. So it's over there, it's only because Hamutz Chavel of Araya. The burden of proof is on the one who's receiving the gift. Which acre did he leave out?
This has got nothing to do with the slave.
No.
The man made a statement like that to anybody.
I understand that, but he originally, all my properties are yours except an acre. All my properties includes the slave. Right? And yet we say, Reb Shimon says the slave is freed. Correct? Although the properties themselves, he's not able to collect any of the properties. He's not able to collect. So I'm explaining it this way. Reb Shimon is saying, although there's a lack of sincerity when he said, all my assets are yours, by saying an acre, rather than specifying which acre, in essence, what is he saying? I'm giving you nothing. As he's giving him nothing on the property, maybe he's insincere even on the slave. Because the slave he included, if it was said, you and all my properties are yours except for an acre. So there, he delineated him separate from the properties. They weren't included in all the properties. But here he says, all my properties are yours except for the acre. So here, within that statement, there's a lack of sincerity. Because factually, he can't collect anything. So maybe although he said an acre, he said, look, it's all yours. Just an acre is not yours. What am I able to take? You know, everything in the vault is yours, but I'm not giving you a combination. So what are you giving me? You're giving me nothing. It's the same idea. And yet Reb Shimon says, he's still freed. So we see clearly, although he said kol nechasai, I'm able to see the slave separate from all the properties. So that's palgin dibura.
Shimon wouldn't agree about the lack of sincerity in the case.
Because when he said kol, I see the slave separate from the properties. In property, maybe there's a lack of sincerity.
But slave is property.
No, but it's not. Kol nechasai is fixed property.
It's fixed. That means fixed.
That's the vast majority is all fixed except the slave. And he said, when he said all, he included slave in that. Let's not make it complicated. Let's understand the basics. Then we'll get to the other case. There are other slaves. Right? Do you dance with 2 feet or 15 feet? Let's first speak about the step with 2 feet.
If a man was not sincere and he knew that by making an ambiguous statement, nothing would transfer. All my assets are yours except for 1 acre. Now, it wouldn't matter if he was talking to a slave or talking to
anybody
woman.
else. Correct.
Nobody could collect because
Correct.
of the ambiguity.
Correct.
So if the man understands the halacha, the speaker understands the halacha, that the man actually is saying something and he knows perfectly well nothing will transfer, that's why we don't transfer the slave, according to the one side of the understanding.
Correct. Correct.
So then how would you understand Rabbi Shimon?
Reb Shimon says that since when I hear the words kol nechosai, the lack of sincerity is only regarding fixed property. That means he's able to take that general statement and divide it Say within that, there are two statements being said
Focusing the lack of sincerity
on the fixed property.
and
Exactly.
on the slave.
But that you have to assume the position of Palgin Dibura.
Yes.
Although there was one statement, I'm able to divide it and say regarding the person it's one statement, and regarding the fixed property it's another statement. Although it was one statement.
Once one introduces the concept of insincerity, it becomes much more difficult to divide this.
Correct. So it's with a kosh came. It's with definite. Here where there's a lack of sincerity, and Reb Shimon says despite that he's still freed. So man says kol nechosai, right? And you only substantiate part of the document. It's not a question of sincerity. It's just a question of legitimacy. There's no question he's going to be freed, right? It's with a kosh came.
If you say it's got nothing to do with insincerity, maybe
Right.
the man didn't know the halacha, he was clumsy in his words, okay, I get that. But if you say that he was very deliberate, he was calculated.
No, but you could. But again, let's say he would say let's say he says, you and my properties are yours, except for an acre. Where did the lack of sincerity manifest itself? Only in regarding transfer of property.
That's not the statement.
No. But I'm just saying, if he would have said that, then it's clear.
Then it's fine.
Everybody would agree he's free, right? Here he included slave in all my assets. All my properties are yours, except for the acre. If you're of the opinion Palgin Dibura, we see that statement, that all-encompassing statement, as if it would be two statements, because he's speaking about two things: fixed property and slave. So if you see it as two statements, so where does the lack of sincerity manifest itself? Only regarding fixed property. So I'm just saying. So from there, it's definite. In our case, an Eid Echad is believed to validate a shtar shechur, but he's not believed to validate a document which is a monetary document. So therefore, I see that statement as two statements. Regarding emancipation, he's freed. Regarding the assets, you don't transfer assets. Okay. But Tosas asked the question either because Tosas cites the Gemara Bava Basra, that when you have such a situation, you say, all my assets yours except an acre, why can't the recipient collect? Because you're not sure which acre you left out. So the Gemara says, you know what you do? You make an evaluation and you take the best quality acre and you say, that's yours, everything else belongs to the receiver. If that's the case, it's very clear. So there's no ambiguity, because if you can't deal with it, it's true, it's a lack of sincerity. But if actually we're able to deal with it by saying you received the aegis, you received the best quality, and the rest is transferred, it's not a problem. Then it should work, right? But then it has nothing with Palgin Dibura. Take a look at Tosas. Tosas cites Rashi, and he.
Take the man literally.
The kasha. So Tosas says, I have difficulty with Rashi. Aval gavadlo hiskashem karka. Even though he didn't identify the property, Tosas, it's about 5 lines down in the narrow lines. Even though he didn't identify the property, he said acre. Nikol mokom konakol karka. Dislay. Nevertheless, he acquires all the properties he does acquire. Elishiara eved al tachtona. But the slave, he has the lower hand, meaning he doesn't have the right to take the best. The master will retain for himself that measure of the best quality property. As he quotes the Gemara Bava Basra. Person says, I'm selling you half my field, and it's not clear which half of the field he's selling. So the seller has a chazokah. He has a chazokah meikora. He has a cheskes marikama. He originally owned all the land. The question is, what did he transfer? Did he transfer the better half of the field or the lesser quality of the field? So we say, Motzchav lo varaya. Yaniach lo chatzi sodeu parshas lokech notel kochush. The buyer, he takes the inferior part of the property, the yad bal ashtar tachtona. Because the acquirer, the one who has the deed, the new deed, he has the lesser hand, because he doesn't have the original presumed status of being the full owner. So if that's the case, we have a way to deal with this. So why should the slave be, has nothing with Palgin Dibura? Factually, we're able to. I think what Tosas is saying, I don't think it's a question on Rashi. Because again, even though everything's said and done, he takes the owner retains for himself that, but factually you wrote it in a way where it's unclear what you meant. This is the only way to adjudicate the case. Since we're not sure which he retained for himself, which he gave, we adjudicate. We say, you know something, the burden of proof is on the one who wants to extract. But reality, there's ambiguity in the document. We don't know what went on. The Torah says we're not able to deal with certain situations. But what did he write? What did he actually give away? We don't know what he gave away. We don't know.
There's a difference in this case. There's actual a sales going on here in Tosa's situation. When he says "Chutz mi kur shel karka," there's nothing about a sale. He just said "Chutz mi kur."
No, he's gifting it. Same thing. Same idea. I'm gifting you something, and he didn't identify what he's gifting. He said the measure, but he didn't say which measure. So there's no question. The master will retain the best measure, the best acre. But again, but everything after everything's said and done, is that really what he meant? We don't know what he meant. Right? That's the way you have chazaka. What's chazaka? Torah says if you're in a state of flux, not knowing, the way you'll deal with it, go after chazaka. But after everything's said and done, do you know what the reality is? You don't know what the reality is. Chazaka is the only way to deal with something. But in terms of what we speak, sincerity of the gifter, we don't know. There's lack of sincerity. Exactly. But even after the solution, is it really? There's a Pnei Yeshua in Ksubis. He speaks about the concept of Hamotz Chavel over Rayo. The burden of proof is on the one who wants to extract from the other. Right? It's a principle throughout Shas. So the Gemara offers two bases for that. One is it's a svara. What's the svara? It's a logical concept. What's the concept of Hamotz Chavel Rayo? Man dekov le keiva az leveyasya. Person says, I have a headache. So you say, you have a headache? Go to a doctor. What are you bothering me? I own the property until now. You claim you own it. You know something? When you bring proof, then we'll talk about it. Until you bring proof, so why do you have a right to retain it? It's not clearly yours. Even the one who retains it. Factually, I have it right now. Is it definitely mine? It's not clear it's definitely mine. It's not. But you can't take something from me unless you bring proof that it's yours. No, it's not. It's not a chazaka. It's less. No, the question is, even after everything's said and done, it's really a suffix. Except Torah says, because you retain it, you have a right to retain it. Until now, you've had it, we allow you to continue retaining it. But is it definitely yours? It may not be definitely yours. The other is, it cites a posuk of chazaka. Chazaka is a psak. When the court gives a ruling, it is yours. It's not because, I'll give you an example. We have a concept of kol dolam govar. Right? Sometimes the court gives a ruling, kol dolam govar. Let the best man win. Fight it out. Two people, they go to the dock, and there's a boat. Each one claims the boat is his. Neither are muhzak. Neither are in possession. So what's the psak? The Gemara says, kol dolam govar. Let the better man win. They fight it out. Whether they slug it out, or each one brings proof, whatever it means. So there's an argument. Exactly, is the psak, what is kol dolam govar? Is it a psak? Is that a verdict? Is that a ruling? Or is the court just removes himself? We can't deal with it. You have to work it out among yourselves. So, but even if they work them out themselves, even one takes the other, there's no proof. Whoever takes possession that it's really his. If it's a psak, it's a ruling, it's a verdict, let the better man win. So whoever wins of the two, the court says, that indicates it's rightfully yours. So that's a ruling. The other, it's not a ruling. We don't know. Of course, the question, maybe neither own it. Maybe there's a third party who owns the boat, right? Because neither are in possession of it. Even though everybody agrees, tfisa, if I have a chazaka and you want something, you seize it, the court will force you to give it back. That's something else. That's something else. Okay. So I'm saying, so Tosa's question is not really such a strong question. Even though in the Gemara Bava Basra, man says, I'm selling you half the field. And there's a question, which half is he selling? And we say that the seller retains the better half of his field. That's understood. Because there it's not a question of what? of sincerity. Here we're dealing, when the man said, it's all yours except, and he's included in that, even though ultimately the gifter is going to, the master is going to retain the better acre, but factually, is that really what he meant? We don't even know what he meant. Once we question his sincerity, then the slave, the emancipation of the slave comes in question. Did he really, truly, sincerely mean to free the slave?
What he meant.
It's irrelevant. It means nothing. It means nothing. So Tos himself says a little bit of a dochik, learns a whole different shit. We're speaking about the man has a fixed piece of property, one property in the slave. He says, all my assets are yours, except that field. Right? When he says that already, since he said included initially the slave in all the assets, and then he said, except that field. The question is, that statement, does it negate the first statement? Or does it not negate the first statement? The slave itself could still be could be identified as all my assets. Reb Shimon says he could be identified as all my assets. Originally we said all assets means including the field. That's except the field. So what's left? The slave. But the slave, he should have said the slave and the field. So what do we say? We could say no. We're able to take out of that statement all my assets, the slave. That's Palgin Dibura. That's the way Tosas learns. So it's not a question of sincerity. It's not a sincerity issue. It's a question is, does the original statement stand independent of the latter statement? That's the question. Okay. Let's. Right. Does it negate it, or does the code? It doesn't negate it. That's Reb Shimon. It nullifies it. That's the question.
And he said, all my assets except field A. Then he's being specific. That's not a...
Because all the assets still...
Because all the assets have three things. And he specified which
Okay.
one this one. So
Okay.
when you have two fields, one field only, he looks at being specific.
So Rava says... Good.
When Tosfos brings the case of the man that says, makes the vague statement, all my assets except the field, and then
A field, or an acre.
They leave him, who cites the other field, and they leave him with the most valuable field.
Right.
I'm presuming that there are two witnesses that are present to speak to that transaction. Because if there was only one witness or a document, we wouldn't allow it either way.
Oh, of course, the two witnesses on that document.
That's the difference.
And it's certified.
That's the difference. I mean, that's a big difference from what we're talking about here, because here we're talking about...
No. On that document, the two witnesses.
No, the document...
No.
But a document doesn't stand on its own.
No.
We've said with the transfer of
Wait
property.
1 second. Two separate... The case over here, speaking about the Mishnah, we're quoting Reb Shimon. He said, except for an acre. Except for an acre. The two witnesses, that document is fully certified. Fully certified, both.
It's fine. They're both documents, but we've said...
No, our case we're discussing, it's not certified. Only the Eid Echad certifies the document. So the Eid Echad's belief for one, not belief for the other. That's what we're discussing. The Mishnah we're citing now, Reb Shimon, he says, all my assets are yours, except for a field. A field.
Right.
Okay? That document is witnessed, and it's certified that these witnesses are authentic
There
citizens.
are two witnesses on the document.
Correct?
But there's the slave that's bringing the document.
No. In that case, the slave's not bringing the document. The slave is presenting the document.
Yes.
So this is my writ of emancipation,
Right.
plus I receive assets.
Right.
Does it have any viability to the document?
I thought we said that the Chazal say that to transfer property, in addition to the document, you have to have witnesses.
It's witnessed. It is witnessed.
No, I mean physical witnesses.
No.
I mean, the document will speak for itself.
The document will speak for itself as long as the witness is on that document.
But with respect to a get,
A get is something else. A get is something else. A get, see the
You don't
difference.
do that
No,
with
no,
a get.
because a get is something else. A get has
two witnesses on the get, it's the same document, same certification, but we don't accept this.
exactly, because there you have to presume that the witness who witnessed the transfer. By get, if the witnesses sign a document, we rule it's a valid get, because the presumption is that the witnesses wouldn't have signed unless it was done correctly in the presence of witnesses.
But still, we don't accept it.
We do accept it.
You have to, somebody else has to say it was signed in my presence.
No, let's say you'd have two witnesses. No. Let's say the court goes and they're able to verify the authenticity of the signatures. Right?
The get is coming from abroad.
No, that's something else, because that's funny nechtam.
Right.
But let's say you have two witnesses saying, we know these signatures are correct, are authentic signatures. Correct?
One or
Two.
witnesses. Okay, then that's okay.
That's okay. You don't need that. Because and the presumption, but how do you know it was given in the presence of witnesses? It's two separate, so Tosas explains, of course the presumption is the witnesses wouldn't have signed unless it was done correctly. Okay?
Now, what about the transfer?
For a transfer property, you don't need that. You don't need that.
You just need a document.
You need a document. And we have to know that the document was given by the what? By the owner to the recipient, to the purchaser. That's what we have to know. So who tells us that? We know if it's signed, they wouldn't have signed the document on behalf of the buyer unless they signed on behalf of the seller. So if you have the document in your possession, that means you definitely received it from who? From the one who originally owned it. But the question is, does it have any value? Because it's unclear what he meant. That's our discussion over here. Reb Shimon says it's still valid. Regarding freeing the slave is freed. So Tosa says it has nothing to do with Palgina, the way Rashi learns. Because factually, the original owner retains the best quality property and everything else goes to the slave. So it has no relevance to our discussion here. Kol nechosai stands in its own right. Right? Kol nechosai still means all my assets except whatever that may be.
Just to sort of again, a woman brings a gift that's properly signed. She brings it from abroad, and she said, I'm divorced.
She has said, von Nacht.
Right, and we believe her.
Correct.
When she says this.
Correct. You believe her.
So the slave, we're saying the emancipation of the slave follows the same
Correct.
rule.
Correct.
Okay, so he brings this.
Correct. But in that document, not only does it say he's freed, all the assets are also
All the
his.
assets are his.
So that we say. So that was the argument. Rav and Abaye. Abaye says, as I don't believe him on the assets, and he's included in all the assets, I don't split the language.
We don't believe him in the assets
Because you need two witnesses. No, we don't know if the witnesses are authentic. Who's validating the witnesses? It may be a forgery.
A man brings put a slave aside, a man brings a document from abroad, a regular Jew. It's signed, it's authenticated.
It's authenticated.
No, it's signed with witnesses.
But who says the witnesses are authentic
So
signatures?
we don't believe it.
We don't believe it.
There has to be
It has to be certified by the court. You need, and the certification.
The document has to go. Just the document doesn't stand on its own.
Unless it goes to court and it's validated that these signatures are authentic signatures. Once it's authenticated in the court, now it becomes a viable
That's
document.
true regardless. So a document really doesn't stand on its own
Until we know it's
authenticated.
because it may be a forgery. But that's a rabbinic concern. On a Torah level, it does stand on its own.
Okay, so there we go. The
Torah's-
presumption that the witnesses.
Because
everything
we
is
said on Daf Dalet, because we could say with certainty the average person doesn't forge a document. So on a Torah level, but factually, but rabbinically, people have what to say. People have what to question. So to remove all that concern, it has to be authenticated before you collect, rabbinically. Okay, we have two minutes. But factually, Rava says, he made the statement, seemingly Rava is one of the Reb Shimon. Sidmar asks, the Omer of Yossi, Bar Miyumi, Omer of Nachman, Afal Pishakilis Reb Yossi, yes Reb Shimon. Although Reb Yossi, he praised and he extolled Reb Shimon for his position that the slave is emancipated, Halach Reb Meir, we rule like Reb Meir, that we don't say Palgin Dibura. So how could Rabbi say that regarding when the slave says that I received the get shichur? We believe him to authenticate the document, and we say Palgin Dibura. We had said that even though Rabbi Yossi extols Reb Shimon for his position, but nevertheless we were like Rameir, Ditanya. Shenemru dvorim lefnei Rabbi Yossi korolov hamikra azeh. When they had said over the position of Reb Shimon before Rabbi Yossi, he cited Pasuk Mishlei, Svosam Yishak Meishir Dvorim Nechochim. Those lips which say such pearls of wisdom, those lips deserve to be kissed because it's Dvorim Nechochim, because the words are such proper and correct words. So if that's the case, how do we reconcile Rava? How could Rava say Rava is Reb Shimon, Palgin Dibura, but if you were Reb Meir, we don't rule Palgin Dibura? To be continued.